Kafka is quite unexplored as far as Kerala, my native place, is concerned, and the writers, they are quite inspired by that. So it's even though there are several works which explores his themes, it's quite difficult to pinpoint the subtleties, and it's quite difficult to categorize them.
As iconic as Kafka is, he's pretty much an international figure. I believe that in comparison to other regions in the world, the interest in him is pretty much restricted or limited to the academic and intellectual community in Egypt. For the average Arab reader, Kafka is quite an enigma. He's quite difficult to access, not to mention that the average Arab reader would not like that kind of how dark his literature is.
Kafka is quite present in Frankfurt, I would say, and also in whole Germany, as he's one of the most famous and most researched authors of all time, I would say. You can get in communications or conversations quite easily.
Because India is a multicultural, multilinguistic country, therefore we have so many ways of looking at Kafka from different languages. Particularly in my case, I'm looking at Urdu, so there have been writers who have been really much influenced by Kafka's writing.
In Freiburg, the situation is a bit special because we are right at the French and at the Swiss border, so we are thinking about Kafka in a European context.
Kafka is a very popular subject in my university. If one does what I do and starts the research on Kafka and Romanian literature, one also has this opportunity to promote Romanian literature as well.
I can imagine Korea might be one of the countries that has strongest presence of Franz Kafka. Kafka was introduced to South Korea in the mid-1950s, and there have been 70 translations of the Metamorphoses.
Studying Kafka in Portugal is very difficult. Firstly, because there aren't many students who start a master or a PhD in German literature. And secondly, because there are scholars who believe that there's nothing more to say about Kafka. I hope that my research is an impulse to the future.
In Shanghai, Kafka is everywhere. In our textbooks, in high schools, also in our classrooms, in universities, and also in different bookshops and even in exhibitions and so on.
In terms of benefits and challenges of teaching and studying Kafka in London, I see more benefits than challenges. Certainly my undergraduate students are all very receptive. I think Kafka is always a sort of crowd pleaser in terms of teaching, and that's absolutely my experience in London.
We had a little bit of an interest through the high schools because the high schools would always incorporate the Metamorphoses into the reading, into the high school reading. So people who then came to learn about Kafka as students already had a foot in the door. That has changed radically in the last 5 to 10 years. Working on Kafka in the United States, once you are recognized, have written something on Kafka, it's a wonderfully welcoming community.
Surprisingly to me, at least, Kafka is not a household name anymore. I certainly thought when I taught a seminar on Kafka that students would be coming with some kind of knowledge of Kafka and the Kafkaesque, but I have actually found that among my students and among the general population, it's about 50-50 whether there's name recognition. And much of that recognition is actually through popular culture, such as The Office, the US version, or Breaking Bad. And so that actually is one of the challenges of studying Kafka, I would say, in my field at least.
Kafka is actually very, prominent, one of the prominent authors, or German authors, let's say, in India. And we have varied adaptations of Kafka in India. We have various plays, Giraftari, that is based on the trial. I think Kafka is very atemporal, so it's up to the person who reads it and how he reads it and how he wants to convey it to his readers.
Italy has had a very long tradition of very good translations and of very prompt interest in German culture and German-speaking literature. And we have a really generous funding, so thanks to the funding of the department, I managed to go to Berlin to the Akademie der Künste to do my research. So there is a presence, it's much talked about, but of course to access the resources, I need to travel to Germany, and that wouldn't be really possible without a generous funding body behind.
I've arrived in Oxford more or less, I'm in the right place at the right time. There's been a lot of performances like the Hunger Artist and Kafka's Ape, as well as all of the the exhibition, the conference, etc. So there's an embarrassment of opportunities, I think.
Everyone who's working in Oxford on Kafka is extremely lucky. I mean, the expertise you encounter here, the scholars you work with, my doctoral supervisor, for example, she's an expert on Kafka.
So I think Kafka always has been present in the US in German scholarship. For instance, at the yearly meeting of the German Studies Association, there are always panel series and roundtables. Last year I organized a roundtable called Kafka at 100. And then this year I'm organizing a digital Kafka symposium. We even have a panel on gamifying Kafka, so Kafka games, using virtual reality and how games are also used in the German-speaking classroom.
It has become especially apparent this year that different aspects of Kafka have been widely introduced in South Korea. Kafka's sketches and letters have been published, and various exhibitions and lectures about Kafka as a real person and his works have taken place in different locations across South Korea.
One of the great things about pursuing Kafka in Pittsburgh is that there are lively programs in German studies, in Jewish studies, in film and media studies, in literary studies, of course. And it seems like Kafka really does benefit from the intersection of disciplines rather than being singled out into any one discipline.
I have been interested in the issue of editing Kafka's manuscript, especially the posthumous manuscript. It's really difficult for me to talk about it, especially in Japan, because general people don't read German text at all. My aim is now currently is to bridge the gap between the general readers and Kafka's scholars.